Kakadosh Boker or Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Memtet Amud Aleph 49a1. The Gemara says now as follows. We were talking about right now the machloket between, we wanted to make it a machloket, instead of Amoraim, also a machloket Tanaim. That if you're going to come and lend money on the mashkon, on a collateral, and then Shemitah comes in. Yeah, so therefore, what do you want to do? So he said that even though it was only half the value, according to the Shbag, it's not going to cancel out the loan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, if it was the full value, it doesn't cancel the loan. But if it's half the value, it cancels out the loan. So we asked, what does it mean now it's not canceling out the loan? Well, that Shbag says, if you're going to tell me now it's only the 50, that was the value, so therefore, obviously, Rabbi Yehuda says that it does, right? But rather, the mashkon that we're talking about, so what do we need it then? But rather, right, what are we talking about? He comes and he says, what we're talking about is that, what does it mean, eno mishamet, the kamar shbag? We're talking about eno mishamet bekulo. It's not going to be doing, it's not going to cut off the entire thing. Okay, that's what it means. Eno mishamet bekulo. Umay mishamet the kamar Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So what does it mean now, the mishamet that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is talking about now? To the half, right, which was not taken as a mashkon. And that is the machlok between them. That Rashbag says, right, that keneged kulo kune, that you're going to acquire the entire thing, and therefore, right, it's not going to cancel out. Or Yudanasi said, no, it's only half, and therefore that's the machloket. So says the Gemara, no, that's not the machloket. What does it mean now, eno mishamet? He comes and he says, my eno mishamet, the kama Rashbag, lehach palga denakita lem mashkon, the half that he had the mashkon on it. Miklad Rabbi Yehuda Nasi savar, so it's mashma Rabbi Yehuda Nasi holds. It's also going to be mishamet. Ela mashkon denakila. So what do I have then the mashkon? Lezichron dvarim be'alma. Meaning, if anyway I would have to give you back the mashkon. So what was the purpose of giving you the mashkon in the first place? You asked me right now. What happens if it's going to happen that you have to cancel the loan? Does he have to give back the mashkon? The answer was yes. So why is he giving him a mashkon? So the mashkon was a zichron dvarim. The zichron was not, the mashkon was not there to actually act as a payment. It was to act as a reminder, I owe you money. You understand? That's what it was acting as. Okay? Now we're going to bring a story. Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana comes and he says, Yavu lezuza kitna. Right? They gave him a little bit of money for kutna, for pishtan, for flax. La Sofia kitna. At the end, it went up in the price. So Rabbi came in front of Elmaleh. He says, whatever the money that you have, give it to him. And the rest is dvarim be'alma. Udvarim en ba'em mishum mechusrei amana. Dvarim is not a problem of mechusrei amana. This is what I told you before. You remember? Meaning, whatever he gave you the value of the money, that you do have to give to him. But the rest of it is only words. Since the rest of it is only words, there's no problem of mechusrei amana, because obviously you're allowed to retract because the price difference. Meaning the second that there's a justifiable reason of price jumping, so therefore that's already enough that it's not, there's no any more ruach hachamim, meaning ruach hachamim is not nochai menu if it stays the same price, and also you just retract. But here, listen, if it is not, you didn't do anything. You understand? Yes. The itman, because it was stated. Dvarim. Yeah, you heard. Dvarim. Rav says, Em ba'em mishum mechusrei amana. Rabbi Yochanan says there is a mechusrei amana. So there's machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Is there a problem with mechusrei amana, which means that you're lacking belief in a person if he's going to change his words or not? So Meitvei, so we're going to ask a question now on Rav, because again, one more time, there's a machloket between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Can you retract on words by itself? Okay, again, there's no kinyas, no nothing, only words. Can you retract on words by itself or not? Machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. So Meitvei, so we're going to ask a stira on Rav. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Dama Omer, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Dama says, Matal Mulumar Hin Sedek. Why does it have to say in the pasuk Hin Sedek, Hin Sedek? Valo Bichlal Efa. It already said Efat Sedek. Why do I have to bring the Hin? There are different measurements, right? But it says in the pasuk Moznet Sedek, Avnet Sedek, Efat Sedek, Vehin Sedek, Yilachem. We have to be makpid on all these different measurements. You already know it. So he says, Ella lomar lecha she'ehin shilcha hen tzedek, velav shilcha tzedek. Meaning, we're not talking about the measurement. We're talking about that your yes should be yes, and your no should be no. You understood? That's the pshat. Your yes should be yes, and your no should be no. Okay? So I'm gonna Abaye comes and he says, he says, when you're going to speak and you're going to be maftiach with your mouth, you should not be echad b'peh v'echad b'lev. There's a lot of people that are like that. They come and they tell you one thing, and really be'emet they mean something else. That's called echad b'peh v'echad b'lev. So he comes and he says, but you should know you're not allowed to be the way. Yeah? Meitvei. So we're going to ask the following question. Rabbi Shimon says, אף על פי שאמרו טלית קונה דינר זהב ואין דינר קונה זהב קונה טלית, מכל מקום כך הלכה, even though we just said that the talit can be קונה the dinar zahav, but not the dinar zahav קונה the talit, nevertheless that's only halacha. But they already said מי שפרה. Okay? So therefore, here we're actually showing you that here, if you're no seven notem bidvarim, right, and you're not going to acquire it, and then you're going to be retract, we just said en ruach chachamim mecha menu. Here's not true. Here you have a מי שפרה. So says the Gemara, you're right. It's Tanai. It's a machlok Tanai. It's not as we learned to the Mishnah. Masechet Rabbi Yochanan ben Mattia. There was a story with Rabbi Yochanan ben Mattia that he told his son, go get us workers. He told them, I'm going to give you food. And then when he came to the father, he said, Beni, you're not going to be Sidduch. Well, why? Because they're Bnei Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. עד שלא יתחילו במלאכה, צבע אומר להם, המנת שאין לכם עליי, אלא פת וקטנים בלבד. Until you guys don't start working, I'm only going to give you basically bread. Bread and kitnit. How do you translate kitnit? Beans? I don't know. Yeah, you're only going to get pat v'kitnit bilvad. It's the only thing that you're getting until you actually start working. Okay? Ve'isal kadaitach. Now, if you're going to tell me, dvarim yesh b'hem, what does it say there? No, doesn't translate. So the beans. Now says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me not dvarim sheyesh b'hem mechusrei amana, that these are dvarim that they have mechusrei amana, how did he tell him now, go retract? You can't retract. The second that he gave his word, Kaddish. Yeah? You listening?
So when we say only have one word, even if you haven't signed or pay you 50.
So the Gemara answers, Shane Atam, it's different over there. What's the reasoning? Basically, here it's a little bit different. You know why? Here it was the son that was getting the workers to work. And therefore, the workers already know that the conditions have to come from the father. So therefore, they weren't 100% somech on the son. So therefore, he could still retract because even the workers themselves were not somech datam. So therefore, they could also retract. Okay, that's what's going on over here. Okay, fine. So says now the Gemara, right? So even if they started the work, what's the difference? Even if they started the work, also there's samech on the father. So says the Gemara, he says no. If they already started, they're going to be samech because they said because he already told it to the father, and the father was happy. Meaning, if they already started the work, it means that the father already knows, and therefore the father was okay with it. So therefore, they're going to be samech on the father. Now we're going to go back to Rabbi Yochanan. Does Rabbi Yochanan actually come and he says that there is a problem of the chesurah mana by words by itself? If the person's going to come and he's going to say, I'm giving you a present. Yeah? So I'm giving you a present. Yeah? And what happens is, he says, can he change his mind or not? So Yachol, I would have thought to say that he could be choser, pshita, obviously, ela shemutar lachzor bo. It's mutar lachzor bo, meaning that the kavanah is that there's no chesron imunah. So it comes out that there's a sira. Rabbi Yochanan said that words is a chesron imunah. Here it's not. Because here you could see that you could retract on giving a present. So Rabbi Papa, Rabbi Yochanan matana mu'etet the samcha datayu. He says no. But Rabbi Yochanan does agree that if you're going to be telling him it's a matana mu'etet, you're not allowed to retract. Because if it's going to be a small present, people, he's already going to be somech on this. If I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you I'm going to give you $1 million, it's such a big number. You're not somech that you don't really believe I'm going to give you $1 million. So therefore, I can still retract. But if I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you $5. It's so small. Yeah, he'll give it because it's no big deal. You understand? So you'll give it. So therefore, you somech dato. Once you somech dato, you cannot retract. The achinam mistabra, and this is also logical. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yavu in the name of Yochanan, Israel she'amar leben Lewi. Israel tells the Ben Levi, Kur maaser yishlach biyadi. I have a kur maaser, right? That I separated from my fruits that are going to be to you. Ben Levi rashel la'asot maaser al makom acher. But Ben Levi is allowed to make a tumat maaser on somewhere else. So if you're going to tell me now that he cannot retract, that's why he's allowed to make it on tumat maaser. But if you're going to tell me he's allowed to retract, how's he eating tevin? One more time. The guy's coming and he's giving it to the Levi. The Levi doesn't even have it in his possession and he's giving it to the Kohen. Now, if you could tell me that the guy can retract and not give it to the Levi at the end, how can he do this? Because then it comes out that all the balagan, like what's going on exactly? Huh? So what are we talking about? He says, Kigon shenitalo mimenu, he took it and then he gave it back to him. Because you're right, here we're talking about a matana merubah. Here we're talking about a big amount. He says, kur. You know how much amount that is? Kur ma'aseh yeshlach biyadi. You know how much a kur is? It's a huge amount of what's it called, of properties here. Okay? So since he took it and he gave it back to him as a pikadon, so that's why he cannot, that's why he's saying over here, he cannot retract anymore. If so, in Masechet, let's see the Seifa. Netanol ben Levi acher. What happens now if he give it to another ben Levi? En lo alav el taromet. He can only complain, but he can't do anything. Now, if you're going to tell me, for example, he already took it and he gave it back to him as a pikadon, why does he only have a taromet? Once he did mishicha, it's his own money. El alav shemamina, that he didn't take it. V'shemamina. So therefore, you actually learn from here that according to Shtat Rabbi Yochanan, it's because there is a problem of mechusrei monah by a matana mu'etet, but not by a matana merubah. Okay, fine. Ha'u gavra, another story. There was a person that he gave money, a shum shemeh. He gave money for shum shemim, for sesame seeds, right? But he didn't take them yet. The Sovia kara shum shemeh went up in price. Hadrubu, so he wanted to. They were retracted. The amrulei, and they told him, "Let me shoot. You don't have. I don't have them. Shekol zuzak, take your money. Lo shekal zuzeh. He didn't take the money. The ignuv, and it was stolen. So atu Rava. They came in from Rava. Amarle, he says, the second that he told you take your money and you didn't take it, lo mi ba shomer. It's not even a shomer sachar. He's not even a shomer chinam. He's not even a shomer chinam. Samrule Rabbanan. The rabbi is coming. They said to Rava, he says, what? But they have to actually sell it. You have. He has to accept upon himself the mishapara. Amaleu, he says, Achanam, you're right. He has to accept upon himself mishapara. Because in this case, again, since he already got the money, so therefore he had to give him the seeds. He didn't want to give him the seeds. There was no Mashicha done, so it wasn't the two-way. Remember, if it was a two-way kinyan, he can't retract even if he wanted. It was only a one-way kinyan. He gave him the money, but the other guy didn't do Mashicha, so he wanted to retract. That's Mishapara. So he has to accept upon himself Mishapara. Okay? So Amar Rav Papa says, Amar li Ravina says Ravina, that Didi Amar lehu li hau min Rabbanan. So we was told by one of these Rabbanan, but of Tevut Shemeh, Ve'amnila Rav Shmuel Bar Zutra Shemeh, there's a difference what his name was. Tiavu yavu lekol chalala de alma, that if you would give him all the halal in the world, you could give him anything that you want in the world, he would never change his words. But it actually happened to me, right? With this Hahu Yoma Ipanya Deman Shabbat. It was Erev Shabbat. Right, and I was in my house. And he was by the door. And he says, do you have shum shumin to sell? Yeah, Memtet Amubet, 49b. Amrulei, they told him, Lo, he says, no. Amali, he tells me, Lehava nachzuza b'pikadon gabach, right? This is going to be a pikadon by you. Because it's already going to be Shabbat. Amarle habeta kamach, the house is in front of you. So he put it in the house and it was stolen. So Rava, he came in front of Rava. Amarle, he says, Kol habeta kamach. Lo mi bay, what does it mean? Anybody that says habeta kamach, lo mi bay, it's not even a shomer sachar, but it's not even a shomer chinam. But he didn't tell him that I'm going to watch over it. He just says the house is in front of you. Yeah, the house is in front of you. So Amri lay, so they come and they say, Veha Amru le Rabbanan le Rava. The rabbi told Rava, Ibailo Lukubelo, Yav Mishapara. Vamali, he says, what are you talking about? Lo Adam, what are you talking about? They didn't say such a thing to Rava. What do you know, the seller of the Shum Shamim didn't have to, he says, what are you talking about in this case over here? Okay, fine. The last part of the Mishnah was that Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, right? Kol shakesef yado yado, whoever has the money in the hands, he has the upper hand. So Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Yeah, he says, Rabbi Shimon says Rabbi Shimon, when do we say these words that the seller could retract? When everything's in his hands. But if the money is in his hands and the pirot is in the hands of the lokeach, he cannot retract because it's kaspo biyado. He has the money in his hands. Says the Gemara biyado in his hands, it's biyada mochen. But he says no, the make kaspo biyado. He's got the money, which means the pirot of the money in his hands. So says the Gemara, obviously then. So Rabbi says, what are we dealing with? The aliyah of the lokeach was rented out to the mocher. So time am I taking Rabbanan? What was the reasoning why the rabbis made a meshicha? It's a gezerah, but they're going to say Yomarlo. You're going to tell you nisefru chitim ba'aliyah, that the chitim were going to be burnt to the aliyah. Hacha here b'shutet lokeach ninu. It's going to be in the shoot of the lokeach, right? So he says nafla deleka be'ones. If it's going to fall be'ones, he's going to bring it. Okay. The last story before Mishnah. Hau gavra deyev zuza chamra. So there was a person that he gave money for wine, and he didn't do meshicha yet. The sof shama. So then afterwards he heard that a certain person from the king wants to come and wants to purchase the wine. Elmaleh, he says, Havli zuzach, give me my money. Lo I don't want the wine. So he came from Rav Chasta. Elmaleh, he says, just like by the sellers there's a concept of meshicha, so too by the lekuchot there's also a concept of meshicha. And once you did the meshicha, as long as you did not do the meshicha, he could also retract as well. That means he could ask his money back, even though he didn't actually give. That means it works on both sides. Okay? Fine. Mishnah. Mishnah says ona'ah. We're talking about ona'ah. What exactly is the shiur of ona'ah? Is arba'a kesef, right? 4 mouth kesef, from 24 kesef lasela. Okay? So here it says, okay, there's going to be 4 dinar even a sela. 6 mil kesef and a dinar. Okay, so shtut lamekach. It's going to be 1/6. So I think it's 17%. No, I think it is 16.6% is not. It's 1/6. Okay, so he says in this case, right? He says it's going to be arba maot. So he says amatay mutalachzir. Until when can you retract? Until you could actually show it to the family member or somebody that could actually know the value. Right? Or meaning that you could retract as long as you have the time, meaning once it passes that time, no. So for example, let's say I don't understand anything in a watch. And I had enough time to take it to David, and David saw it. And I didn't retract right away, that's it. I lost out. Okay, means that there's a time frame. Right, which is a shlish lemekach, which is a third, not a sixth, a third. Right? Right, and they were actually very, very happy because it was obviously a very big kula for them. So Amar Lahem, he told them, Kol hayom mutar lachzor. You have the entire day to be chozer. Amrulo, they went and they said, Yanichu lanu Rabbi Tarfon mimkomenu. Go back to your place. Right? Why? V'chazru k'divrei chachamim, which means this. Mitzad echad, Rabbi Tarfon was much more mekel because he said that the shtut, the ona'ah, was not a sixth, it was a third. So instead of me charging you only 17% more, it's double. I could charge you up to even 33% more. So they were actually very, very happy. But according to Shitat Chachamim, you could only retract until you show it to a family member or to a professional to tell you about it. He went and he said, no, you have all day to retract. So then they went and they said, you know what, Rabbi Tafon, stay with your kulot, because at the end it's going to become a chumrah for us also. So yeah, forget about it. And then they just went back to the Chachamim. Okay? Fine. Itmar, it was stated in the Gemara. Okay, Rav says shtut is a mekach shaninu. We're talking about shtut of the mekach, which means that our Mishnah is talking about a shtut lemekach is that the mistake was in a sixth of the true value of the mekach. Ushmul amar no shtut maot nami. Even if the mistake was the sixth to do with the price, that's what we're talking about. Not only just the true value, but the actual price. So shaveh shita bechamsha, if it was sold 6 instead of 5. Or shaveh shita b'shiva, or 6 for 7. Well, I'm going to we go up to the mekach. And it's considered ona'ah. Because according to him, you're doing a 6, even if it's going to be something which they actually fixed it. So kol shekada, you could actually come and say, according to the real value of the of the item. And therefore, right? So he comes and he says, when is the machloket in between them? Shavechamsha beshita, when it's worth 5 and they sold it for 6, or when it's worth 7 and they sold it for 6. According to Shmuel, that we go after the money, so therefore individual it's considered ona. But according to Rav, that we go after the mekach, shavi chamsha beshita, right? It's worth 5 for 6. Bitul mekach, it's considered bitul mekach. Shavi shiva beshita, if it's worth 7 for 6, it's a mechila. And Shmuel comes and he says, Ki amnina mechila bitul mekach. Only if there's no shtut for two on the two sides. But if there is going to be shtut on the two sides from one side, ona'ah havya, it's considered ona'ah. Okay, fine. Next, Tzaran, we learned in the Mishnah. Ha'ona'ah. Yeah, it's arba kesef nesim arba kesef lasela. So this is going to be 1/6. Again, this is obviously how you got to the 6, because it's going to be 1/4 out of the 24. Okay, so it's by the 6th. My love, the Zavin Shavi Esim Esim Rabbi, we're not talking about that it was worth 20 and you sold it for 22. So Shma Mina Shtut Maut Nami Shanin. So obviously we're talking about the money. Because if it was going to be worth 20 and you sold it for 24, yeah, so therefore that is already talking about the 4 kesef. That's already the 16%. So says the Gemara, no. The Zabin Shavi Esim Varba Beslim, the other way around. It was worth 24 and you sold it for 20. So mini Tana, who was the one that had the ona done to him? The seller. So let's see the seifa. Ab matai mutar lachzid, when are you allowed to return it? Until you're going to show it to a tagar or a karov. Says the Nachman lo shalo lokeach. But the mocher, he could always return it, which means he could always come and ask for the money back. Meaning the purchaser only has a certain amount of time, and then kaddish, it's gone. He can't do anything about it. But the seller can. So says the Gemara, Ella, but rather the Zabin Shavi Esim Varba Besim V'Tamanya. It was worth 24 and he sold it for 28. Okay, and that was the case of the ona'ah that we're talking about in our case. Okay, V'Tran, we learned on Mishnah. Horer Rabbi Tarfon Belud. Rabbi Tarfon taught in Lud that the ona'ah is 8 in the kesef. It's going to be a third. You remember? So it's going to be 24 kesef lasela, which is a shlish lemekach. Are we not talking about now that he sold it shitzere besim varba for 16 for 24? And shma mina shlish maut nami, it's going to be the money, not the value of the object, it's the money. So says the Gemara, no. The zabin shavi yisim varba b'shitzar. We're talking about you sold 24 for 16, the other way around. So the Gemara is going to ask the same question. Who was the one that did the ona'ah? It's the seller. Let's see the seifa. The seifa says that only the buyer has the entire day to do it according to Rabbi Tarfon. Remember, according to Rabbi Tarfon, you have the entire day to return it, not until you show it to a family member or a tagar, right? But Rav Nachman says that's only by the lokeach, but the mocher could always return, could always ask the money back. But rather, the zabin shnes shavi esrim v'arba b'tzatin utren. It was worth 24 and you sold it for 32. Okay, and we actually learned in a brighter according to Shmuel, mishu utal alav yado alayona keitzad. What does that mean? That whoever has the ona'ah, he has the upper hand. Machallo shaveh chamisha b'shisha meaning who's getting the ona'ah? The lokeach, the buyer. So it says yado lokeach alo yonah. He gets the upper hand. That Salomar telling if he wants, he could tell him, give me back the money, or give me the ona'ah, or give me back. Which means he could basically come and retract on the entire sale, or he could just ask for the money difference. So he has the upper hand. He could tell you, give me back all my money. Take the thing, hasta la vista. Or he could just tell you, give me the difference. He could tell you that. That means he has the upper hand. And, right? He says, all telling Masheoneti, Macharlo, Shaveh, Shesh Mechamesh. If he sold him the 6 for 5, who's the one that's Nitaneh? The Mocher. So now the Mocher Al-Yonah. He could come and he says, give me the back the Mekach, I'm giving you back the money. Or give me the Ona'ah, and then we're going to retract.